The NFL deadline has come and gone. We're going to talk about the move the Lions did make and some of the moves the Lions didn't make here today. Let's go ahead and talk about it.
With the Cleveland Browns for Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver. It literally just happened. So
First, let's talk about the deal the Lions did make, and that was trading a 2025 sixth-round draft pick to the Cleveland Browns for wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones. Peoples-Jones coming back to the state of Michigan after playing high school here at Cass Tech, and then going on to play at the University of Michigan before being drafted by the Browns in the sixth round of the 2020 draft. So the Browns came out even here. They just get a draft pick for a sixth-round draft pick in a few years. That's the same round that they took Donovan Peoples-Jones in. The Lions are getting a big-bodied receiver that they've kind of been lacking. They have Josh Reynolds, but you could tell they really targeted that during this offseason when they brought back Marvin Jones. But then he ended up leaving due to some family concerns. And I was actually all right with our four receivers that we were left with after that. With Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably a top 10 receiver in this league. You had Josh Reynolds, who I was very pleasantly surprised with his play so far this year. J-Mo has been a little up and down, more down recently, but still, you'd hope that something was going to click there, and there's still plenty of time left this season for it to click. And then Khalif Raymond, I feel, is an underutilized gadget player. Maybe not underutilized. He's underrated. He's an underrated gadget player, and I kind of felt like he was maybe getting leaned on a little too much, so maybe you could argue that there was some wide receiver need there. But I didn't think that was going to be a priority. I thought maybe they were going to look more towards Antoine Green or one of the guys in the practice squad, maybe elevating one of them. But instead, they decided to go ahead and trade for Donovan Peoples-Jones. And I like this deal. It's a sixth-round draft pick. We all know Brad Holmes' history with all of his draft picks and how he's typically hitting on a lot of them. But six-round draft picks for what you're hoping could be eventually your number two receiver I think is a pretty good deal. Now, you have to wonder what this does with the progression of J-Mo and what this does with Josh Reynolds after the season he's had so far this year. But again, I'm a pretty big fan of this deal. Last season, Donovan Peoples-Jones had 61 catches, 839 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's way down this season so far with only 8 catches for 97 yards, as he's kind of looked like he's been phased a little out of the Browns plan. So everyone had been saying he needed a change of scenery. He had been rumored to be on the trade deadline, or be a guy to be moved around the trade deadline for a while. So he comes to the Lions. I think this could be very helpful for the Lions. It gives them that big-bodied receiver that can make contested catches that they were hoping they were going to get with Marvin Jones. And while he was on the team, it wasn't getting. And now that he's gone, they really lacked that. So I think this is a good deal. I'm going to say that probably too many times, but I'm pretty happy with the deal. It's a low cost, a 6th-round pick. It's not huge, and it's a fun for 2 years from now. So I think it's a good deal. We can get some production out of Donovan Peoples-Jones, decide if he wants to re-sign here. He is only 24 years old, so he fits in with that youth culture, that youth movement of the Lions. He's still very young NFL-wise, and it brings him home. Like I said, he's from Michigan. Let's go ahead now and talk about what most people want to talk about and what I've seen blowing up all over Twitter, and that is the moves the Lions didn't make. Chase Young goes to the 49ers for a 3rd-round draft pick, and Montez Sweat, both of the Commanders, by the way, go to the Chicago Bears for a 2nd-round draft pick. There were a couple of guys moved around. Rasul Douglas goes to the Bills. I don't think we were ever really in the running for Rasul Douglas because he was a Packer, and Packers probably weren't going to trade him to us. They don't want us to get better. And then there were a couple other moves that Lions fans kind of looked at. I knew the chances were real low, but I was still holding out hope from Max Crosby. We saw what he did with the Raiders yesterday against the Lions. Thought of him and Adrian Hutchinson together. Sounds really awesome, but it didn't happen. I didn't think that was going to happen. I was holding out hope and holding my breath a little bit as we got close to 4 o'clock. But the two that a lot of Lions fans are kind of looking at Brad Holmes with a side eye today are the Chase Young and Montez Sweat deals. Chase Young does go to the 49ers. The 49ers are already one of the top NFC teams. They've kind of been on a little bit of a downslide this last couple weeks, but still, that defense is already lethal, and they're adding a guy who has a lot of potential. He gets reunited with Nick Bosa, and both of those guys played at Ohio State. I believe they played together. Don't quote me on that. But that was a third round pick. A lot of Lions fans were saying that's all it took to get Chase Young. The big thing to note is all of those edge rushers, even if you look at like the Brian Burns people we're talking about, they're all on expiring deals and are going to cost a lot of money here coming up. They're premier edge rushers. They're going to demand huge contracts. The Lions do have salary cap space. They could have thrown a big contract at one of these guys. But they also have a lot of their guys in-house that they need to take care of first. Lions have guys like Jared Goff that are going to need a contract extension here coming up soon if you plan to keep him around. He's only on the books through the end of next season. He's going to demand a pretty big salary if you keep him around. Guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown are coming up. Jonah Jackson's due at the end of this year. Sewell's going to be coming up. And then a couple years from now, you got Hutchinson coming up. And those are all guys who are playing at high levels and are going to demand big contracts. We're probably not going to be able to pay all of them. Some of them are going to leave. And now trying to bring in an edge rusher who's going to demand top tier money. There's a lot of what ifs going into that. I know a lot of people think that this year and next year are the Lions' so-called window. I think if they continue to do what they've been doing, the window can be opened for much longer. The Lions are trying to build a dynasty, not a one-year rental Super Bowl. They want to continue to be good, and they want to continue to build upon what they have already. And throwing a high draft pick at one of these edge rushers and then having to throw them a $28, $29, $30 million per year deal kind of hamstrings your ability on that. You got TJ Watt making almost $30 million a year, and these guys are going to see that deal, and they're going to want to get in on that kind of money. That's huge money for a team like the Lions, who have been really smart about where they spend their money, where they're going to draft their players instead of sign free agents. And that's a huge deal. So I understand why they didn't make those moves. I'm not going to lie. I would have been really excited to hear Chase Young and Montez Sweat or a Brian Burns or a Max Crosby was coming to play DN next to Aiden Hutchinson. I would have been very excited and figured that would have made our defense look a whole lot better. But for right now, this season, outside of the Seahawks game and the Ravens game, the defense has looked all right. Has looked pretty good. We got 6 sacks yesterday coming from a bunch of different players against the Raiders. I think the Lions are looking at it as they don't want to sacrifice long-term potential for the short-term satisfaction. And I'm all right with it for right now. I'm still trusting in Brad Holmes. I don't think he's made a mistake today by not going out and getting one of these guys. But a third-round draft pick for a potential premier edge rusher, that's pretty big deal. Even a second-round pick for a guy who could get a bunch of sacks is a pretty big deal. So I understand why people are mad. I also understand why the Lions didn't make the move. And I know it's kind of underwhelming to come away from this when you're expecting a Brian Burns, Max Crosby, Sweat, Chase Young, and you walk away with a Donovan Peoples-Jones at a position where we didn't really think we needed it. I understand that disappointment, but Brad Holmes hasn't really done anything wrong besides addressing the kicker position to make me question what he's doing and why he's doing things the way he is. Think about back to the draft. I was one of the people who was ready to crucify Brad Holmes for the draft picks he made. And look at how all those players are playing now. The positional value, they don't believe in it, and it's been working out so far. So hopefully Donovan Peoples-Jones can come in, play really well. Maybe Chase Young and Montez Sweat don't live up to their billing. And they're going to be free agents at the end of the season anyways. Potential, if they don't get franchise tagged or their guys' contracts are expiring. Maybe they're available as free agents this offseason, and maybe then we figured we can throw the money at them. We'll see. But for right now, that's all my thoughts on that. I'll have the Raiders, Lions recap and winners and losers coming up probably tomorrow. So until then, I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys all next time.